Welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, MrSniDBitS,
I was pleasantly surprised.
BlackGirlMarvel,
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
TylertheFilmmaker.
It's like so much depth. It's like nowadays it's, you got A shot, B shot.
All the movie things.
There's some great wide shots in this.
JeannineDaBean.
Each other. They just kind of look like they were having fun and doing their own thing.
Produced by Hyena. And me, the Real Study movie voice guy.
But this was the first time where I got to see it told in a way where I was like, oh man.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Slogans.
And welcome to The Real Study. My name is MrSniDBitS, and tonight I'll be, also a movies employee for the evening. We've got a special guest this evening, Will Wilkins. Say hi, Will.
Hi, Will.
Hi, Will. We've also got, as always, to my left, we've got BlackGirlMarvel, we've got JeannineDaBean, all the movie things, and then, of course, Tyler will hopefully be here soon. We'll see. Otherwise, we'll have J Muse hanging out in the meantime. Tonight is the first of 4 episodes where we'll be covering a bunch of Kevin Smith movies. I don't think we can cover them all unless we extend. But tonight will be the beginning of the Buick universe, which is going to be Clerks and Mallrats. We'll get into Chasing Amy and Dogma next week. But first, we're going to move over to the main wall and have La tell us about some social media.
Sorry, I had to cough there for a second. Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us here on The Real Study. As always, please follow us on all social media. If you're watching us right now, you can see all of our links up top. You can see that we have Letterboxd, that we're on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not calling it by that letter. We are also available on all podcast streaming places. So if you have Google, Apple, Podcast Republic, or any other place that you stream, we are on there for you to listen to. Make sure you follow, make sure you rate, make sure you leave a comment. It helps on all platforms. Any type of comment or push or share or it really just helps us push us out to more people. So if you enjoy us, let other people enjoy us by commenting and helping us out. And you can also join our Discord. We're all on there. We talk every blue moon. We play games every blue moon. You could come and request a film or something, or a TV show or something fun for us to partake in. We have veto power, like I say every time, but we don't use it.
Right.
But we have it for the future. So come be.
We just like having the power, right? I think is what it boils down to. We want that power.
Yeah, Will likes to have the power too, so we're so happy.
Especially.
Yeah. But make sure you follow us on all social media. We appreciate it, and thanks for joining us tonight.
And speaking of Will Wilkins, let's go ahead and hear from you. I know you're still doing the Netheads podcast, and of course you are the CTO for Kevin Smith's SMODCO. How is all that going, and anything new on the horizon for Netheads or your TikTok?
Anything new on the horizon? No, I just need to make content or edit it in a timely fashion. No, I never have any agenda. I'm the world's worst content creator, but I really appreciate the fact that everyone's willing to go ahead and plug all my things. I'm that Will Wilkins anywhere you can find me, or Netheads on Air is the YouTube channel. We get together, we try to anyway, every Thursday, I think at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 Eastern. And it's just good nerdy talk, something that we're obviously going to be getting into today as well, to some degree, I would expect, even though I like talking about Clerks is one of my most I don't want to say most interesting things in retrospective of Kevin Smith's career, but only because it's a very unique convergence of things. But about me, that's it. That's where you can find me, and be disappointed by me not doing anything in a timely fashion.
And since he won't plug himself as well, he's also on Fandoms, which is over at the Nerd Initiative with our good buddy, Mr. Marvelite.
Actually, it's now at It's Fanbox. Just go to itsfanbox.com, and that's typically every other Friday, I think. But that actually also got circumvented by the talks about Agatha All Along, which, oh my gosh, what a Marvel show.
What a Marvel
we're here to talk about today.
Nice.
All right. Well, we do have some movies that we have watched this week, as we always do. And La, it looks like you got to watch Brothers. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you thought about Brothers?
Brothers is a Prime film that stars Josh Brolin, gosh, what is his name? Peter
Dinklage.
Dinklage. Thank you. Peter Dinklage, Glenn Close, Marissa Tomei is in there. Brendan Fraser is in there.
Jeez.
Yeah, like it's stacked.
Wow.
It's stacked. There's an orangutan in there. I just want to throw that in there. And it's a hilarious, disgusting scene, but it's great. It's such a this film is such a weird film because Josh Brolin and Peter Dinklage play twin brothers who come from a very criminalized family, and Peter Dinklage is the twin that really latched on to the family trait, and Josh Brolin is the twin that has like a natural talent for it. He just does not want it. He wants to live like a normal life, and I'll just say like it's Peter Dinklage's character goes to jail, and Josh Brolin's character lives his life. And once he gets out of jail, the hilarity ensues. It's a fun film. It's pretty much just a very like simple film about family and about how, you know, y'all might be different, but y'all still love each other, and you have to find the ways that they do love you. Like, you know, kind of like just accepting people where they are and not where you want them to be. So, and it's just mixed with a lot of like weird stuff. Like Brendan Fraser plays like a corrections officer that's dirty. So he plays this like hilarious, like dirty cop, and like Glenn Close is such a terrible mother, but she's like, yeah, this is who I am. Just
she's played the second though, so
yeah. So I'm digging Glenn Close, like Glenn Close and Hugh Grant. I'm digging like their villain, like they're kind of like digging back into like the villain, their villain trajectory, like just these odd films that you kind of see them in now that just somehow works for them. You can see the fun, you can see how much fun they're having, and I think everybody on the set had fun. But yeah, check it out. It's on Prime. It's a watch. I'll say it's a watch.
It's on my list, so I will definitely be checking that one out. Jeanine, you went down and spent some time with some family and got to watch a couple of classics, or at least a classic and one that you really like. Tell us about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I got to watch some movies that I've seen before with some fresh eyes. On Halloween, my 6-year-old nephew came over for a sleepover, and I decided to show him Monster Squad. So his first time watch of that film.
Cool.
He was definitely, thank you. He was definitely really into it. He loved the monsters. He loved the kid characters. He thought it was funny. And then when he spent the night here in my media room where I have a giant picture of zombies from the Walking Dead comics, and it always freaks him out. So he was like, I'm not sleeping in here. But I said, well, when the movie ended, you told me you were in the Monster Squad now. So if you're in the Monster Squad, you should be brave enough. And he's like, you're right. So yeah, so he said, you're right. And so he's brave enough to stay in this room.
That's good stuff.
He's in the Monster Squad now, so he really enjoyed it. So
that's cool.
Yes. So I kept telling him, so are you going to watch this with me every Halloween? He's like, no. And I'm like, I kept asking him. So I'll keep bugging him about it. But yeah, he really got into it. And then recently I showed my dad the movie Fresh Kills.
Nice.
He just retired, and as soon as he retired, he had to have shoulder surgery, and then after that, he had to have heart surgery. So he's been kind of going through it health-wise, but he's in recovery mode, so he's just kind of hanging out at home. So I've been going up there and spending a lot of time with him, and so it's given me the opportunity to spend time and watch movies with him, which is something we never really did. So when he told me kind of his vibe of movies in terms of crime films, I immediately recommended Fresh Kills, so we sat and watched it together, and I told him, oh, you know, I'm mutuals with the woman who's in it, and she directed it, wrote it, and I was telling him all about Jennifer Esposito, and I said, well, if you give me a little review, maybe, you know, I'll share with her, and you know, so he was like, okay, so he didn't really know what to expect, so he ended up kind of giving a little review, so you can watch that on my TikTok of his thoughts of the film, and you know, he's on some medications because he's healing, so he kind of, when I said, so after he gave me the review, I was like, so you liked Fresh Kills? And he's like, Fresh Kills?
He's like, what's Fresh Kills?
I was like, the movie we just watched. I thought it was called something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, by the way, I just want to point out that's the reason why I laughed when it was introduced that Janine had seen some movies, because I see her content and I was just instantly had a replay of both of those instances in my head, and I relived my enjoyment. So I'm not laughing because people saw.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely a fun watch, and so I've been. I just came from spending time with him, and I showed him another movie I really like called Remember with Christopher Plummer. Didn't get a review this time, but he really enjoyed that film as well. So it's been fun getting that time with him to watch movies with him, which is something we never do. And now I have a video of watching movies with my dad and watching movies with my mom. So now it's like a competition to see whose video does better. So they're having fun with that.
You should have them watch the same movie and give a review.
I know
how that links up.
Yeah, so future content ideas. I like it. I like it.
I love it. Myself, I got to watch another Damien Chazelle film this week, and it's First Man, starring Ryan Gosling. And this man never disappoints, and I mean that about director and actor. They really, this film is. I'm a huge NASA buff. I love a lot of NASA history, going back to the 50s, Mercury, etc. Even going back to like Chuck Yeager. I know. Let me, but it's just one of my passions I've always had. And so watching a movie that's modern about stuff I know about from history is really interesting to see what they get either right or to see what they kind of take liberties with. And they pretty much nailed this to a really ridiculous accuracy. The moon, when they land on the moon and they show it, looks exactly like the actual footage from the moon.
Because it was fake.
Right. I knew that would come up. I know. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is the first time. 2018 is the first time they were able to get it that accurate. I'd say it took a while. Anyway, the film is really truly about Armstrong's journey through life and his struggles more than it is about him landing on the moon. And I think it's something that anybody who is a parent or has struggled with loss in their life could 100% understand where he's coming from and what he's going through. And what I liked is it's not just his journey, it's his wife's journey, and it shows both of them as his launch to fame happens. Launch to fame. It's a beautiful film. It's a beautiful film. What I think is the most, people are talking about the soundtrack, which I agree, it's beautiful, or the score is beautiful. But the thing that got to me was actually the sound design. There are moments where they're sitting inside, with Ryan Gosling waiting to go up, or they're going through the rocket launch, and you can hear all the creaks and groans and pull on all the metal, and it's really unnerving. And you're sitting there going, man, these guys really had to have the cojones, right, to do this. Literally a tin can, and spinning at a ridiculous rate. So yeah, please check this film out if you have even a slight interest in the space race. If you want a little bit of like Ryan Gosling playing a very serious character rather than some of his kind of jokey characters. And then of course Damien Chazelle is phenomenal. So please see it. That said, we do have our spooky spotlight that we're going to hit, and then we are going to move over and start talking about the movies. But before we do that, we do have the news, and I didn't even check with Janine, but I do have a couple stories myself. I assume she brought one or two, but we'll move over and do the news.
Now it's time for the real news.
All right. So for me, the first thing I saw was the Heidi Klum E.T. Dress, the dress up that she did this year with her husband. And so you got her as E.T., which is so great. And if you look really closely, you can see her neck is where her face is.
That's where her face is. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Her face is in the neck. Right. She's amazing.
Yep. You could actually, and then like the wrinkles are on her face, which is great. Yeah. And then her husband, of course, joined her. And so there's E.T. and then girl E.T. together, which is just so great. Every year she doesn't let us down. Right.
I saw hers too. Really good E.T. as well.
Damn,
yeah, awesome. I didn't realize she had done that too.
So Janelle's is actually height. I think the height on Janelle's is like very similar to the actual E.T. though.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I always remember the worm that Heidi Klum did a few years ago. She did like the tapeworm or something.
Every year.
Every year she's amazing.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Every year she's amazing.
Yeah.
because she plots her
So-
stuff the same
Oh,
year. Like
yeah.
so she'll
Oh,
so
yeah.
she's done her
She's
ET
probably
and then she's like she's
She's
probably already
on the
working on
next
it for
one.
next
Oh,
year.
yeah.
She's
She's
working
the
on
greatest
whatever's next.
cosplayer to ever
Yeah.
live.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, being a model for a long time helps you understand what that takes to some degree. So that's pretty cool. Janine, did you have a story?
Yeah, so not great news, but as a huge fan of Dawson's Creek, I have a Dawson's Creek binder sitting next to me that I made in high school. There was news today that James Van Der Beek has been fighting a battle with colorectal cancer. So,
Oh, jeez.
yeah,
that
so he
sucks.
says he's very hopeful. He has every reason to believe that it's going to be
Right.
okay because he's been fighting this for a while now. So, yeah, that just recently popped up on my FYP today, seeing that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Ah,
So this is my
Dawson.
first
Oh
time.
my god.
Yeah.
Well, and he's also in a movie we're going to be watching in 3 weeks. So
Yes.
The Dawson.
Right.
Janine, we gotta do a chat on Dawson's Creek. I love Dawson's
Oh, yeah.
Creek.
Yes, yes.
That's millennial like candy, right? Dawson's Creek.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Depends on the millennial, but yes.
1988,
It's got a
I
rule.
think it premiered. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this has been talked about a few times on social media, and I know that Stoobs and others have covered this, but I thought it was a good thing to cover. Anna Kendrick, of course, did her directorial debut, where she did a film, The Woman of Hour, about the females that were involved in, of course, this series of serial murders, which is awful. And instead of doing what most people do, which is, hey, I made money on the serial killer, I'll pocket it, she gave all the money to the National Center for Victims and Violent Crime, which is RAIN, which is brilliant. And I just think that should be highlighted more. So I really wanted to bring it up here, that she was willing to not only bring this subject matter to life in a way that matters, but then also donate the money. So I thought that was cool.
Especially that movie. My wife and I watched it Friday night, and just an amazing job of taking just very factual material and making it into a very compelling and suspenseful story that also draws you in to make a connection with some of these characters. I was just really impressed as her directorial debut. It's like, wow, what a heavy subject, but what a great job done.
Awesome. Yeah. I will be checking it out soon. I just, I'm glad we can highlight it here. So, did either of you see it? Did Brian or Janine?
Yes, I saw it. Yeah.
And good? It was good?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, good. Yeah. She definitely takes the time to focus on the victims as well. So, just kind of highlighting this serial killer.
No, I heard she does use the real name and the real information in the film. That was one thing I heard was like the only criticism, but I'm like, but it's not they're not, I don't know, his name isn't what's being announced or talked about the most. It's just it's a thing. So I don't know.
They do a little blurb at the end to talk about him and like what he did and him ultimately getting caught and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Did you have another story, Janine? Because I do have a third one.
Yes. So Disney still scraping the well of things that nobody asked for with a Prince Charming movie. Chris Hemsworth is in talks to play Prince Charming, and it will be directed by Paul King, who did the Paddington movies. So, I mean, there's a light side on that with him. I think everyone loves Paddington. But yeah, I don't know who wants this, but it's there.
Honestly, I hope that it shows a very hardcore Prince Charming. I hope it shows a Prince Charming that yes, he's charming and he's a prince, but he like works hard for his people and his title. I hope it's that, because if I watch a Disney movie with a prince that's crying and he's a prince, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that.
So you want him to just be like hunting?
Either. I feel like they could go the himbo route, especially with Chris Hemsworth.
That was what I was thinking. It's gonna be
comedy.
It's gonna be Thor, Prince Charming.
Look,
that's what I feel like. Yeah,
right?
You nailed it, Brian.
Yeah,
I'm just finally glad there's going to be a representation of a strong male character in movies.
Finally. Oh my god,
strong white male character.
Strong women films have been too much for me. I'm just
also I really like that they're going the direction of having like a really just handsome guy. Yeah, just a really extremely handsome,
just a normal man.
I'm tired of seeing
every guy.
I want to see really handsome.
I want to see really handsome dudes. There's so many ugly dudes on screen. Like, what are you doing?
As a human being with a weak chin, I have to say we do not get weak chin representation in many movies. I'm just gonna put that out there. We have to fake it with the beard. So
hashtag weak chins, man. Bring them up.
Right.
Bring all the weak chins.
And there
up.
are plenty of people that have them.
Give me,
and we
a weak chin Prince Charming. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I know there's one out there,
right? Or something.
You know what I mean?
They could have cast Dave DeSmulchin. Sorry.
There
Yeah.
you go.
There you go.
Now that would have been a unique.
Honestly,
you could probably pull it off.
That's the Prince Charming I want to see.
He really could, right?
He could actually. Yeah, he could actually.
He can. I don't know. He's in so many movies. There's so many little pieces that you can.
Yeah.
Give me the Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, no.
Prince Charming. You know what I mean? Cillian Murphy. Sorry, Cillian Murphy. Give me a Cillian Murphy Prince Charming. I'll take that.
Just
interesting.
Like brooding Prince
He
Charming.
would just be he would just be Angel.
Super.
I don't feel he has range. He has range. He could put a smile on his face, maybe,
Yeah.
possibly.
Some of the boys from the Rat Face Summer.
Have you ever seen him
vibe.
smile
I think
in a
so.
movie? I don't think I have. Anyway.
I love watching footage of interviews with Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, because he's just like
so fun. Because it's just all business. It's so funny.
He's as all business in interviews as he is.
Oh my
in
god,
most of his roles.
yeah. No, it's
I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
he's my Capricorn spirit animal. I promise you, he is.
I love
I promise you.
that. One final story before we move to the spooky spotlight. Sounds like Lego is planning live action films now, and I have no idea what
that gonna look like.
means. I don't know. That's all I have.
How does that
they
even
pick some
work?
directors.
How does that look?
You ever seen New York Comic Con? People dress up like real life Lego. That's what it is.
That's
They're
ugly.
just
I
gonna
don't
make
want it.
Look,
Yeah,
I would criticize, however, like when it came down to the Lego movie, when I first heard about it, I'm like, what? No. And then I saw it and I'm like, damn.
Okay,
So
that is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That like look of stop motion, but it's not stop motion.
I won't deny a live action, but I my brain can't comprehend what that would look like, so I can't.
Yeah.
Maybe because they do build things out of Lego big now. Maybe they'll start building all the sets out of Lego, but just do like a romantic comedy. I don't know.
Sounds like body horror.
Yes, like burn it with fire.
I just love it. Like
their hands,
They're
just like hands, and then like the thing that comes out of the head.
No, can you imagine those hands? But they're
The
flesh.
giant holes in the back of their
But
legs.
they're flesh though.
Wow.
Nubbin on the top
but
of the
like
head.
fleshy,
No.
right inside
Flesh.
those holes. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that's-
could just take off like blocks of themselves
Oh,
and
have
put
you
on other
guys-
blocks.
could I
I don't
just
know
suggest-
if
how about
Hyena,
Kevin Smith's Tusk, but with Lego
ooh, yeah.
instead?
Oh God.
Oh my God.
I
Oh.
know we have that coming up. I have not seen it, and I've been trying. I've been avoiding seeing it just because of what I've been hearing. And I'm like, now I'm forced to see it, and I'm just gonna be like,
I love Tusk.
Tusk for
Not
you is
looking
my the room. That I like
Man.
this. We've gotten each other to watch our
Getting you in that
don't
out of
watch
your
this
comfort
movie.
Yeah.
zone.
and like, well, my
Yeah.
thing was just like I've heard how like hard it is
Jarring
to
it
watch.
could be,
And
yeah.
so,
I've
so
seen it one time,
it's not
and I've
bad or
seen
anything,
all
but-
of his movies
Yeah.
dozens of times.
Right.
If that tells you.
I am going
know.
to second what Snitty said. As much as I love Kevin Smith and I've seen his films bajillions of times, many times, I've only seen Tusk once. I've only seen it
But I will. I'm gonna go through it again. I will go through it with you.
But I will. But I will.
Yeah.
Need a palate cleanser.
I will for Will.
What? I need to get off the podcast?
Don't
With
leave
that
us.
said, and Tusk being brought up, that's a perfect opportunity to start the spooky spotlight.
Let's go.
And now it's time for the spooky spotlight with Bats McSkelly.
Hi, I'm Bats McSkelly, aka Batsy Hearts Horror on TikTok. I'm here to help you creepify your life this spooky season by sharing my thoughts and recommendations about horror movies. Have your own thoughts about a movie I talk about? Come find me on TikTok and tell me about it. In horror news, Zyrina Perfume released 2 new fragrances in October, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with notes of aged leather and chainsaw exhaust, and the Trick or Treat with notes of caramel apples, damp earth, and dead leaves. I'll definitely be adding the Trick or Treat one to my Christmas wish list. Kate Siegel and David Dasmalchian are to star in a new Mike Flanagan-produced zombie film, Epilogue. 1 year after the zombie apocalypse begins, a desperate couple search for a cure for their infected daughter. I love both Kate Siegel and David Dasmalchian. They're insanely talented people, so I'll be on the lookout for more info on this project as it develops. Here's some horror I watched this week. The Purge, election year. Former police Sergeant Barnes becomes head of security for Senator Charlie Roan. a presidential candidate targeted for death on Purge Night due to her vow to eliminate the Purge. I enjoy the Purge franchise, mostly. It's fun and over the top, and this particular entry into the franchise is eerily relevant this year. I'm particularly unsettled by the idea of home invasion, and this franchise reminds me why. If you're looking for a horror movie that'll have you triple checking your locks before bed and side-eyeing even your closest family members, this is the one to watch. 7 out of 10. The Shining. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father to violence. At the same time, his psychic son sees horrifying forebodings from both the past and the future. I love The Shining. It's not the best adaptation in my opinion. There was a lot changed from the book to suit Kubrick's vision, and I know Stephen King hates it. However, I think it is an excellent movie. Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall are absolutely brilliant and so convincing as Jack and Wendy. The movie does a fantastic job of switching between POVs and seeing Jack slip further and further into madness while Wendy is trying her best to care for everyone and being the actual caretaker of the entire hotel. I could go on and on about how much I love this movie. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. The Exorcist, the version you've never seen. When a mysterious entity possesses a young girl, her mother seeks the help of 2 Catholic priests to save her life. I'm not usually into religious horror. It doesn't really get to me. However, this movie never fails to creep me out. Watching an innocent little girl go through so much on screen is always so disturbing, and that's so much more true when you watch the director's cut. The upside down crab walk down the stairs is burned into my mind like a brand. Also a 9 out of 10 for me. Since this week's theme on The Real Study is Kevin Smith, here are some horror comedies I recommend. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Affable hillbillies Tucker and Dale are on vacation at their dilapidated mountain cabin when they are mistaken for murderers by a group of preppy college students. If you haven't seen this movie and you love campy, blood-soaked, chaotic, violent, and hilarious horror, you have to watch this one. Alan Tudyk and Taylor Labine are goofy and brilliant in their portrayal of these 2 hillbillies who just want to spend a peaceful weekend in their backwoods cabin. It's got major Scooby-Doo vibes and never takes itself too seriously. 8 out of 10, find it free on Tubi. The Voices. A likable guy, played by Ryan Reynolds, pursues his office crush, played by Gemma Arterton, with help from his evil talking pets, but things turn sinister when she stands him up for a date. I have a lot of fun every time I watch this movie. I really think it's best to go in knowing nothing about this film, but I highly recommend it if you're looking for a horror comedy that's off the beaten path. I rated it 8 out of 10. Find it on streaming for free on Philo and Sling TV. Barbarian. In town for a job interview, a young woman arrives at her Airbnb rental late at night only to find that the house has been mistakenly double booked and a strange man is already staying there. Against her better judgment, she decides to stay the night anyway, but soon discovers that there's much more to be afraid of in the house than the other house guest. If you like feeling uneasy about your basement or vacationing in an Airbnb, this is your movie. Everything about this film creeps me out, from the unknown roommate situation to what waits in the darkness of the basement. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. Do be sure to check the trigger warnings at doesthedogdie.com before watching if you need to. There are some heavy topics explored in this one. You can find it to rent on your favorite demand service. Thanks for watching.
I forgot to put on my sticker. We
are back from the Spooky Spotlight. Thank you for that, Batsy McSkelly. Go follow her, please, on TikTok and other platforms. I think she opened up an Instagram and other things as well, so please follow her. That said, we are going to get right into talking about Clerks, which is, of course, Kevin Smith's premiere film, his first directorial debut, if you will. He did direct other things before, if you want to really get into the thick of things, but they were film school, and we can talk about that later. Let's go to Will Wilkins, actually, because he's our guest, and this is your, umpteenth viewing of Clerks, and what did you think this time around, sir?
Wow, I'm really watching this again? No. I mean, the thing, I guess the only thing that I really brought new to the experience of watching Clerks again was the fact that I had just a few weeks ago spent a lot of time with like Brian O'Halloran at Chronicon, the first ever that Kevin Smith niche con that happened, and it's interesting the energy that he has now versus what we see on the screen then. So I was just kind of marveling between the actor I'm seeing on screen versus the person that I got to know even more recently. And other than that, I was just actually, honestly speaking, while I was sitting there watching it, I often, and I'm not, this isn't a humble brag or anything, but I am often, I will sit back and I marvel at some of the numerous lucky breaks that I've had in my life and the things I've been able to experience. So while I was watching this movie, first I was reflecting on the fact that it really is it was a perfect recipe, if you will, of a movie that was inspired by other indie filmmakers that also hit it just the right moment to kind of create this world of being in the entertainment industry for Kevin Smith, and kind of how, you know, in my own way, my life has kind of had those little parallels. So I was watching that, and I was also kind of taken aback with my fresh experience with Brian. It's just the fact that I think part of the reason why the movie works so much is because it's real people in the movie, which makes them more believable. It's a very grounded film. Let's be realistic.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's very, even though it has the, what would become that signature Kevin Smith dialogue pattern, which, you know, was really derived from like the Fletch novels and the like, kind of that cadence and that structure. It really was a very, very grounded and kind of real / surreal movie that just hit just the right beats and kind of took those inspirations from Spike Lee and the like in order to put together a film that even now is still extremely rewatchable. And I think the other thing too that I took out of watching it again, of course, is just its quotability for all the time. Anytime you hear the number 37 now, you'll always follow it up with in a row.
In a row, yeah. Like,
so I'm number 37.
What a joke.
Yeah. So that's really what I got out of it, is just like, wow. And then just thinking about, you know, how I can't believe that this movie ended up spawning a trilogy or spawning everything that it has.
The whole universe, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the fact that we always talk about the Marvel universe, this cinematic universe, that cinematic universe, but that was like one of the first things that really drew me into Kevin's works, which is why I was really excited about sitting today, is because suddenly the continuity that was present when you get from Clerks to Mallrats, because Mallrats technically happens the day before Clerks. And so it's just like, and there's Jay and Silent Bob again. So, but I you know, the other thing too that I also, when I was watching it, that really kind of hit me, that I remembered the first time I watched it, I always thought for a lot of the characters, like definitely Dante, Randall, Kim. Oh wait, Kim? No. Anyway, I was always thinking about how, like, where did I've seen them somewhere else, haven't I? And I think it's just because that they're you know, real people that you know don't have a lot of acting experience, so the certain realism just lends them to familiarity. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I don't know where I was going with any of that, other than the fact that, you know,
you like it.
Yeah, it really, it's one, it really definitely is a product of the time as well. You know, I was of the same age at the time, so there's a lot of life that's reflected there that, you know, is very similar to the tone and the vibe, as the kids put it now, to what life was then. And you know, just the fact that it's so simple in its production, not because of artistic choice, but because of practicality. You know, it's black and white because they were shooting in the quick stop and with fluorescent light. Everyone would look green. Can't afford the light kit, so we'll shoot it in black and white.
Right.
So you know, it's just,
I love that stuff.
It's an amazingly miraculous little film that probably really shouldn't have hit the way it did, but you know, through every bit of random happenstance, it did, and I'm ever thankful for it.
Happy it did. Yeah, no, for sure.
Right. I think a lot of people, I think Kevin especially, and even the people that have gone with Kevin have as well. So everybody had seen Clerks before this. I wanted to make sure, because I usually love to get those early thoughts. Okay. So why don't we just go around the horn here? Janine, you're right next to me. What do you think of Clerks this time around?
Well, this film kind of just reminds me of the three directors that made me realize just how important dialogue is in film, and just how much I appreciate films with well done dialogue, and that's Spike Lee, Quentin Tarantino, and Kevin Smith. So with this film in particular, I just love, I get sucked into these conversations because they feel so familiar, like conversations that you would have with friends. So I love when dialogue feels incredibly natural, when you're just talking about silly, innocuous things. It doesn't need to be this profound, Shakespearean epilogue that somebody's giving. It's literally just these random, silly, pervy, jokey moments and conversations. And I love when movies can really portray that convincingly. And I think, Will, when you were talking about, them just being regular people, you definitely see that and feel that. So that's always what I love about this movie. I hadn't seen it in a long time, so it was really fun to revisit it and just kind of remember me as a 20-something being very directionless and feeling like you're not in the place you want to be, but kind of getting out of your own way. I love how real these friends are with each other. Like, I wish I could have that type of realness with people and just kind of tell them things in the harshest ways, but also coming from a place of love. I tend to kind of treat people with kid gloves because I don't want to hurt feelings. Like, I'm honest, but I'm like very kind of sensitive, but sometimes your friends need that push. And watching these characters, I wish I could kind of do that. So it was really great to see all the dynamics between the characters and just kind of relive my 20s in a way. And just love the ease of this movie.
Love it. Brian, Clerks.
Yeah. This movie hit probably like prime time for me. It was 94. I was 14 years old when this movie came out. And Mallrats also as well, like is very much connected with my age then, being 15. But it's fascinating to watch this movie as like throughout all these years, multiple times. It's been a while again, like since I've seen it. So just like from a technical perspective, it's fascinating to watch and be like, oh man, like, it's film, like the budget was nothing. And, you hear all the stories about he was like maxing out credit cards and everything to get this produced, and, and like Will mentioned too, like, a lot of like I went to film school, and a lot of the stuff you shoot, you're just trying to figure out, like, you can't afford certain things. You do have the advantage of like getting gear from the school, but even then you're always going to run into like problems on set, and you have to creatively work around them because you're in the middle of shooting. You have no other way around it. So you got to figure it out. And there's probably, numerous times that they did that, like with just the lighting and like, just we're gonna do it black and white is so great, but then also like keeping it in one location, like that just like takes care of so much, and they can just kind of keep going. But the dialogue is really noticeable in this one, and it was just fun to kind of watch. But going back to like watching this film over the years, and kind of like my perspective kind of changes, where before I was like, I first watched it, I liked it, and I've like always loved it. But when you first watch it, you're kind of like with those characters. Now being like, I'm 44 now, where I'm like, God, get your shit together, guys. Why are you God, you guys are terrible. You're like treating this, you're like treating this woman. This woman loves you, does all these things for you.
She brought you lasagna, bro.
Right? Like, man. So it was just funny. Like, that was what was popping up for me this time. Like, oh man, Dante, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, man? Yeah. So but again, it's like I love it. Like I do want to own it eventually. I own the Arrow video version of Mallrats. But I definitely want to add this to my physical media collection. So
nice.
Another fun watch.
Lava Clerks.
So excuse me, I was 8 when Clerks came out. And
I mean, that's not funny, but I feel
it's hilarious. No, it's hilarious. No, it's downright hilarious. Will, everybody has a right to cackle at that. So I was 8 when Mallrats. I was 8 when Clerks came out, and I remember watching it and being like, I didn't understand why I liked it, but I knew I liked it. It was just something about it, and it might be what Jeannie was talking about it being like just like real people that I can just kind of like be invested in. So I think that was like a big reason why I liked Clerks when I was 8 years old. And then, you know, getting older and watching it, you start to be like, okay, I understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
And now, you know, you kind of like get it. And now that I'm like 37 is crazy. I've always felt like I was a decade behind. In my life, like I always feel like I'm a decade behind. So like I'm 37, and the things that I go through, I feel like 20-year-olds should be going through. You know what I mean? Like I still live with my mom. I'm still trying to figure out like my finances and my money and things like that. And I know you can't put like a timestamp on that or a rush on that, but I just feel like I'm always like a decade behind. But people do, right? Like, and I feel like I'm a decade behind. So I feel like I'm like, this me should have been somewhere. I should be further along. I shouldn't be like in a 20-year-old's like space. So watching this movie now, I'm like, I understand like everything that they're going through, like kind of like feeling directionless and like knowing kind of like what you want, but not knowing how to get it.
How to get there, yeah.
Type of thing. And like that's literally where I'm at. Like I'm an actor, I'm an entertainer. Like I'm trying to do this, but it's so hard to like get a footing somewhere. So type of thing. So like I'm watching this and just like seeing just different layers and different things that Kevin Smith has put in this film, in this dialogue that I didn't catch from 8 to like to now, you know what I mean? From the times that I've watched it throughout my years or whatever. So watching this now, I was like, okay, he's a genius. Like I was like, Kevin Smith's a genius. Like he's just so smart because it's just everything that they were going through. Like I'm like Janine in a sense where like I do handle people with kid gloves. I try to be nice, but I'm also not at the same time. I can be a little like straightforward, a little curt, like even like mean to some people's perception. But I've been lied to.
You lean Randall is what you're saying. You lean Randall rather than Dante.
I do lean Randall, even though like I can be Dante, but I lean Randall like hard. Like I'm not gonna like dime you out. I'm not gonna go tell your girl your business. I'm gonna try to get you to do it. I'm gonna try to get you to tell her the truth or whatever you need to tell her. I'm not gonna physically do it, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. So like watching these real people have these like real conversations, it was just very interesting to watch that my brain can like understand everything that's like going on in the film. And like and plus I understand the words that pop up on the screen because I wasn't getting malaise at 8 years old. I'm just saying I wasn't getting malaise at 8. I was like words are on the screen, and that's what it's going to be. And now
I wasn't pronouncing that at 8, so I'm with you.
You know what I mean? Like those, like that was like now it's like those words just reinforce everything that I was like watching, and it was just very cool to like watch it now. And like for me, watching this was like watching at points. It felt like I was watching a TV show and not a film. It was just points where I felt like this is where the laugh track should be because this is hilarious. This is the moment where people should be like laughing. This is great. And then sometimes just how it's shot and how it's done, like the scene where the guy is like at the register, he's trying to get the guy to not smoke, and then it cuts to Jay like eating food and being like, it just felt very like slapsticky, very TV like show. You know, it had like moments of that. So I felt like in this film, Kevin Smith was playing with like a lot of genres, a lot of just like little things, but it all worked in a way. It just like all worked somehow. So like, it's funny because to see like Randall and Dante in this, and I've seen the second one and I've seen the third one, and to see the trajectory of like not only their friendship but their growth as like young adults to like adults, and having to shed that like 20 I can do whatever type of thing, and having to shed that, it's like I just want to watch them in succession now. I just want to watch them behind each other because it's such a through line of a story. Even though the second and third ones has their craziness and their moments and their like crazy hilarity, like their Kevin Smithiums, I guess you could call them, or their Kevin Smith things. But it shows a through line of these characters like very well, and I think it's written very well. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Well, much like Star Wars Episode 4 and Episode 7, they hit a lot of the same beats, even, which is very interesting if you watch them that way.
I'll call back soon.
Right.
Yeah, and as a content creator, Lala, you got to appreciate the fact that like when you refer to the scene of Jay just suddenly like lifting food and eating it, oh, they're having to cover up a cut there that they didn't know how to get, so they had some B-roll they needed to drop in. And I think the other reason why this movie is so endearing, especially for those of us that first experience it in the time, is because Clerks was still the internet before the internet was the internet. And by that I mean is it introduced us to characters that were having the conversations that I imagine many of us on the panel were having, the discussion of the poor contractors working on the Death Star, or which one was the better movie. That was the internet before the internet. And we're like, oh my God,
sure.
He's deep
they're
dive,
speaking my language.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the guy that comes up after that and says, actually, as a roofer, I would never exclude my personal politics. It kept me alive. Which I absolutely love. So my first experience with Kevin Smith was not Clerks. It was Mallrats, because I saw it in theaters in 95 when it came out.
Oh, you were the one.
I was one of the people.
Right.
I was a Mallrat, so I was like, wait, they made a movie about us. And so I ran to see it. So Clerks is such a brilliant film because so many simple accidents helped elevate the film. Like we were talking about how black and white was used to kind of cut the corners on the costs, but in a way, when it came to shopping the film around for the film festivals, you get this like, oh, black and white. And then Kevin has even joked about how somebody was like, oh, what a great, brilliant move. He made it like it was the security camera footage from the store. And Kevin's like, no, yes, I did. I think the fact that the thing that I think is most brilliant about Clerks is that it's a film about two slackers that never get anything done with their life, made by a man who was a slacker who decided to find a way to make it happen. Like he went out of his way. If you watch the documentary about Clerks, he goes nuts into like, I'm making a movie. And people are like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm making a movie. Jay Muse even talked about how he thought it was like a camcorder, like a little, Sony something or other. He's like, yeah, he's going to make a movie or whatever. And then they show up with like the gear and they're like, no, we're really doing this. It's just wild because so few people have the gumption to do it. And then even fewer people get recognized for it. And the fact that we're sitting here talking about Clerks is on its face, just an amazing thing. Cause it was one of so many films that could have been lost to time. And Kevin at one point thought it was going to be lost to time.
And instead now it is in the Library of Congress.
Right. Which is cute.
I love
there's a few little fun things in the credits that I think people have missed, which I think is great. Scott Mosier, the producer of almost every Kevin Smith production, talked about how he was doing the sound editing only out of pure just they didn't have anybody else. And in the credits, he calls himself the insufficient sound editor, and then they credit the next sound editor that actually did all the work. And he like knocks himself. I've seen this movie so many times that my brain just goes to a lot of the like trivia now, which I love. Walt Flanagan, one of Kevin's best friends, childhood,
it's like
is in the movie like numerous times.
The Lon Chaney of Clerks.
And then Mosier is in the film twice, but actually talks to himself in the film, which is really interesting. He's the guy with the beard. That's kind of a dopey guy, right? Snowball guy. And then he's also the like challenging Dante, to field hockey guy at the same time, who says, no, we're not open. It's so brilliant. They used a hockey stick at one point as a boom mic because the boom mic broke. Like it's wild. Like this is guerrilla filmmaking at its best. And then him and Mosier, after they shot everything and sent everybody away, went over
to filmmaking with permission.
With permission, right? But like
in filmmaking, you don't get permits. You don't like,
Well, it was a handshake deal for the Quick Stop RTS deal. It was like, can I? Oh yeah, go ahead. Kind of a deal. But they had all the film in RTS video. They it was strung over, all over the place. There's even a picture of them holding it, and they just basically slowly pieced it together. And I think one of the brilliant moves was to do those long oneers, right? To give those long shots, 7-8 minute cuts, and then you just piece them together instead of having to do a whole bunch of editing. I think it saved him a lot of time. I think it was a brilliant move. Whether it was intentional or not, I still think it helped him in the long run. Culturally, I think the film is wildly significant because while it doesn't feel like the rest of his films in that sense, it still in essence is, and you do get to feel those characters fleshed out as we move along. But this film sits kind of by itself as its own artistic approach to a subject matter nobody had really done before. So I could gush. So
hey, Will, you're gonna say something, Will.
Oh, was I? You
Yeah.
probably one of 100
So
thoughts.
terrible.
It doesn't
I'm
matter.
about to say he does that.
I don't want.
Yeah,
He
Will
lost
never
it. He
has
lost it.
anything to say. Have you
I just
seen
want to
me
make
on
sure that we got
podcast?
back to you because you wanted to say something.
No, actually, the only thing that I think I would additionally contribute about it is because obviously Clerks had an impact because it did kind of it continued to reach and breach into other things. I can't remember. I think it was the Julia Roberts movie Stepmother, right? They referred to snowballing, which is something that culturally speaking nobody heard of until it was invented in Clerks. And the other thing too is that obviously there is a lot of lore around the making of the film, and over the years we've constantly received like more information and more perspective as it's kind of remembered by Kevin. But one of the strongest things that led to the movie getting made was actually a conversation he had with his sister. And this is one of those things where in life, if you're listening, you're able to get truth if you're paying attention. And his sister had said something to him because he's like, I'm gonna be a director. And his sister said, so be a director. He's like, no, yeah, I know, I'm gonna make a movie and I'll be a director. And she says, no, be a director. If you're going to direct, then just be a director. Think like a director, be a director. So in other words, I guess it's a short way of saying shit or get off the pot, but it's in another way, just don't argue for your own limitations. If that's what you're going to do, do it and be it.
I like that. There was something a friend of mine told me a long time ago that I just took to heart, and it sounds almost the same in a sense. It's basically people talk about what they want to do all the time. I want to. But if you wanted to, you would be. And that's the big difference. So, and I think Kevin just did it, and I think that conversation really did help. It's great. I don't know, the drive, you don't see it when watching the film, although you should if you know how to interpret what this took to make. But the drive he had to make this film is just it's palpable, like what he went through to do. It's even the realization of it, like if you think about it, because he was faced with a decision, because it was a certain amount of money to go to the Vancouver Film School. And so then the decision was made. It's like, well, I could do this and I could put more money into learning how to make a movie, or I can just make a movie.
Go for it and make it. Yeah.
And think about that one critical decision to decide, you know what, after one semester, to heck with this, I'm just going to do it. And as a matter of fact, fate, again, the winds of fate blow their own directions. It was a toss-up between he and Scott Mosier. Scott Mosier was working on a script. Kevin was working on the script. They agreed. The first one to finish their script, that's the movie they would make. And he finished. Who knows the conversation we'd be having right now?
Right.
Even though
we could be talking about Scott Mosier and his producer Kevin Smith. Like
exactly. Yeah. And we would have never gotten that animated Grinch movie. But anyway.
Right.
At least not Scott Mosier's vision. But anyway.
The whole film is surrounded by what you just mentioned there, though, Will, because there's a lot of that, like when they tried to get it into theaters, nobody showed up except the one guy who needed to show up to get it recognized. When they shopped it to Miramax, Weinstein walked out of the room. So they kind of kept having these like problems. So they'd run into an issue over and over until finally Cannes Film Festival is what did it. That's what made the film get a larger audience. And I think that's pretty great that film festivals still do that. We get tons of amazing films because of these festivals. So if you're making a movie, get it into a festival, especially as well known a one as you can, right?
I will say 8-year-old me did not catch the necrophilia joke.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And when I watched it now, I was like, oh, she what? I was like, oh no. I was like, no. I would be traumatized. I wouldn't have sex for the rest of my life. I'll be done.
They address that, which I think is good.
Yeah,
the trauma. That's crazy.
Yeah,
The trauma of that is
rewatching it
crazy.
too. That was the other thing that I never really reflected on just how much outrageousness is in this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's
so much.
37 in a row. Snowballing, hermaphroditic porn, necrophilia. I mean,
that list of movies he was ordering.
Oh yeah, and then the kids movie at the end. What did you want again? In front of the lady and her kid. Yeah,
animal defecation. We had it all.
Yeah.
I was like, I think like 37-year-old me now, I yell at Randall more than I yell at Dante a little bit. Even though I love Randall because he's just so honest. I love honest people. They can all the time come off as rude, but I just love honest people because you know what you're getting right then and there. You don't have to guess. Mm-hmm. It's like right there in front of your face. But I just yell at Randall because it's like, you do things that you don't need to do. Don't do them. Just say your things and just be done. But he's like, I have to have action with these words.
Yeah, that is, and that's Randall's journey through all three films too. Mm-hmm. It's like he is the agent, and mostly he's the agent of chaos.
Yes,
he really is.
Every single film.
I think the only way it would have been even better is if we got a Clerks 4 and we would have discovered Randall didn't actually exist at all. He was just the Tyler Durden of nonsense, making him do things.
Another part.
I would love that. Oh my gosh.
That would make sense.
Gosh.
Yeah. More blunt half of him. Yeah.
It's like we all start off as Randall, but we all turn into Dante. You know what I mean? Like we all.
I think I went the other way. I used to be Dante, and then I became more Randall. I know that sounds weird.
I mean, one would hope so. Realistically,
no, I'm proud of you, man.
I mean, just without making your friends miserable. You know?
No, for sure.
Yeah, no,
there's great qualities to Randall, though.
Right. The loyalty.
Yeah, there's great qualities to Randall. That's
a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, and like one of my favorite scenes between the two of them was like after they have their like very silly fight. Of like laying in that, and Randall's still kind of just like giving it to him, like, hey, like trying to like smack him around, verbally and be like, wake up, like you get your shit together, or like you keep talking all this stuff and blah blah blah, and and it's
he's like, you didn't want to do it, so I did it for you. Like, what's the problem? Like, this is what you wanted.
And of course Silent Bob always has his like moments of like
wisdom and clarity.
Right? It's the only time he talks. I love that.
Yeah,
so apparently
I read
that was an
the
accident.
Part for Randall was for him. It was for Smith. Yeah. He was going to be Randall. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
Yes, originally. That's why Randall has all the best lines. But when it came down to it, and in the thought of having to direct and then looking, he's like, I can't read all this shit.
I bet it's like too much for him. Yeah, it's like too much. Yeah.
No,
I thought that was cool though. I would have, but I think him being Silent Bob might be the greatest creation. Like one of the greatest creations of all time, because it's just, and not even because like it's like them two and like the crazy things they do and stuff like that. It's just that he's literally silent until he does not need to be. Like
and you're talking about a man that's never
the best part.
No, like in this, there's an intro with Kevin Smith in this, and they kind of just let him go. And he just keeps talking about Mallrats and just keeps going. I mean, it's great stuff. It's like so good to hear. It's so fun to hear, but
the dude knows how to tell the story.
He does not breathe. Like,
what's amazing?
I need to hear that.
So good.
What's amazing about Silent Bob talking in the film at all, which of course we get the little morsels in every film, is that Muse really kept screwing up that particular line, and he had already struggled through most of that monologue, and so Kevin was like, "Screw it. I'm just going to do it myself," and then did it himself. And it again, one of those happy accidents where it added that beautiful element to it.
Yeah.
You don't get the chasing Amy moment without it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You don't get all the little,
I love it. I love to
you
hear
idiot,
what Bob
the
has
sign
to
on
say.
the back of the car red. You don't get any of that.
No matter what film, if it's a Jay and Silent Bob film, if it's like, if they are in one of the films, however it is, I always am like, when is he going to speak? What is he going to say? Like, I'm always just waiting for him to like that little morsel of
usually in the third act.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I'm
always ready for it.
All of his lines into like 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, probably.
Yeah, right.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts you guys want to bring up about Clerks before we move on to its prequel? Okay, I guess not. We're going to go ahead and rate Clerks while we're at it. Let's go in the same order. Will, if you were to rate the Clerks from 1 to 10, your scale, what would you give Clerks?
I'd give it a solid 8 happy, scrappy hero pups.
I love it. How about you, Janine?
8.5 out of 10 for me.
8.5. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, it's also a 8.5.
Love it.
Are you copying me, Brian?
I know.
He's just following Rick.
Right.
I'm going to give it 8 snoochie boochies. Yes, that's what I'm going to
Right. Nice. I got to give it a 10 because of the amount of times I've watched it. Just my love of his films. That's how I rate. I rate based on rewatches. So I give it a 10.
Yeah.
He rates on feelings, you guys. It's like his feelings.
I do. How do movies make me feel?
He does though, but I'm just kidding. Yeah, how do they make you feel?
So yeah, if you look at my ratings, there's a whole lot of 8s because they all make me feel pretty good. So, all right, we're gonna move on to Mallrats, which is of course Kevin Smith's second film of many. This continues the View-esque universe, and we get a whole bunch of cousin characters in Mallrats to the main characters of Clerks, and of course this one stars Jason Lee and Jeremy London, twin brother to Jason London, which is another little interesting tidbit, but we'll get to that. Let's go Let's go with Brian this time. What did you think of your rewatch of Mallrats?
Yeah, Brian. Hold up that movie while you talk about it. Just hold it.
Yeah, just the whole time, and my Kevin Smith.
Yeah, hold them both.
Very good. So
just stand there.
Since we're not going to give him any over-shoulder graphics, at least
right? Exactly. Yeah, I'll just do it myself.
It's all live.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not a fan of this movie because
not at all.
Yeah, no, I like Mallrats. It's like so Mallrats again. I was like 15 when this came out, and this was like peak comic book collecting for me. So I'm like in on, which is funny because he in like the intro in this physical media copy, he talks about like no one really knew who Stan Lee was at the time. Like this movie like really bombed. They had like a $5 million budget, and made like 2 or something like that. And he had like all these like comic book kind of references in there that no one was getting, and now, but over time it's really taken on this, new life and everything. And yeah, but I was into it like right away. I mean, I was like so on board with all the comic book references and Stan Lee and like all that fun stuff. Again, it's interesting watching like just like Clerks, watching these like couple of slacker guys, and then growing up, and I'm like, oh my, like Jason Lee's character like really bugs me. Like, like I'm like, come on, dude. Like, I'm like, I don't know. It's just funny, like
23.
Right. Yeah. Well, another thing too is like I worked in a mall, for most of high school, so like this was like our movie, I mean, I did not work at any kind of like fashionable gentleman or fashionable male kind of place. I worked in the movie theater like a respectable human being. But anyway, yeah, so it's just great to like watch this thing and pick up on these these ways that I'm relating to it now as I get older. And like the thing too is like the production value is like night and day.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
sure.
it's just like, I mean, it's incredible what $5 million will get you. I mean, like back then, 5 million was a pretty significant, but still low budget. But
for sure.
like I think about like, so Green Room was 5 million, and I look at what we did with $5 million, but yeah, and you have like such like a bigger cast in this as well. They're able to do a lot more fun things. I love one of my favorite moments with Silent Bob actually is like when Jay like telling him to like give some love to the cats. He just goes
yeah. He's like his little his go like that against it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a, I mean, I could rewatch this. This is probably the second time this year that I watched it, so yeah, it's great.
The facial expressions and the pantomiming that Kevin does, I think, are amped up as well in this film.
Yeah,
he takes it to a little bit more like a Three Stooges
he's
level.
great.
Yeah.
La, what did you think of Mallrats this time around?
Still obsessed. Still loved it. Just seeing relationships. I mean, when I was like back then, again, I was like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about relationships and people being together and love and hurt feelings and stuff like in that context. So like I think Brody was my favorite character because he was just absurd and he talked about comic books and I was like, I get this speech, I get this talk. And then on top of that too, Shannon Doherty's in it, and she's a phenomenal actress. So like, and I've known her from like Girls Just Want to Have Fun that came out, and I think in like the 80s or something like 80s, that. And so I was attached to it because of her, and he's funny. And so like now, like in the over time watching it, it's just gotten better and better because like my frame of reference is better as I got older. So this viewing was like watching the same movie but not at the same time. Like I was able to like dig a little deeper into like these characters, into like the actual words that they're saying, and they make sense to me and I understand them because I've been in a relationship, I've had, you know, arguments and back and forth, so I can get the gist of what they're talking about, what they're going, like I can get all that stuff now. I will say that like the shenanigans in this film are just
shenaniganing up.
You feel me? Yeah. Like shenanigans agains. Okay. Like it's just so funny. Like
shenanigans.
Exactly. They will shenanigan for sure. And I just think they're hilarious. Like I think Jay and Silent Bob, like Bob trying to like Jedi mind trick things. Ethan Suplee trying to see the sailboat.
Oh man. Yeah,
Ethan Suplee might be the unsung hero.
Magic Eye books. So,
Listen, I love Magic Eye books. Like I love those. And like to me, Ethan Suplee is the unsung hero of this film. I just think he's so funny. His scream when Stan Lee is just like, like it's just
so good. Yeah.
He's just so frustrated.
Yeah.
Like it's just like little, and it's like I feel like if that didn't exist, the film would still be the same. But because it does exist, it just makes the film even better for me because it's just these little moments. It's like we're actually in the lives of these people in this mall, and we're watching these different things happen. Ben Affleck has always been able to play a douchebag, so shouts out to him.
Yeah, especially his early career, right?
No, his early career, right? Like he's always
right. He plays Bannon, and then this.
Like, yeah.
He's like 37 dicks.
He just like
yeah.
You know, no, literally, like, but of course, good callback, man. Good callback. And so like it's just you see like so much of so many people. Like, what's the lead actress from Chasing Amy? I can't remember her name.
Oh, Joey Lauren Adams.
She's also
Joey Adams, which she's like, I love her. To me, she was like, she's just a great actress, but I also just love her voice. I think her voice might be like an iconic voice.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just so beautiful and raspy, and I just like love her voice. And so like, plus she's funny. Like it's just like everyone was cast perfectly. Like even if she just had like, she didn't have like a huge role, but she made an impact because of like the things that she would say to people, like the scenes that she would have with Kevin Smith's Bob, like just busting into something and just like it's always her, like that it happens to.
Right.
I have been punched in the tit, so that does hurt. It does sting. So I mean, seeing that scene was like a trigger. I was like, oh my god. No, she gets him back amazing, and I love it. But you know, I'll say this and then I'll end it. But I do agree with Bri. Now, I was like, Brody, my guy.
I know, like
Brody, my guy. And if you really look at the film, and I love this film, I do. I have it on digital. If you look at this film, Brody has no growth. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about his little speech at the end. Him being like, I love you. Yeah. And all that kind of stuff. He's like the only character that kind of like really has no growth. Like he has no growth. And he kind of gets everything he wants off of like just sheer luck. And people like that exist. So I'm not saying it as a negative.
Real.
I'm not saying it as exactly. I'm not saying it as a negative because every film doesn't have to have the person like, I figured out life and I'm a better person because of it.
Rooker's reaction at the end, him? It's like perfect.
Yeah.
Him, no, like for real, like.
Yeah.
But it's like he just does not grow, but gets what he needs to get. And I love that like Shannon Doherty's character is in the muck with him. Like she loves him so much and she's just in this with him. And but especially as he has a career now. But I will say my digital copy for some reason does not have the subtitles at the end for everybody. Like for some reason.
Go? Oh.
Yeah, where they go at the
The
end.
story.
And I was like, I thought that was so weird. I was watching the film and I was just like, plus I've watched it so much, I know that happens.
Right. Yeah.
So when
that?
and I didn't quite notice it at first, and then when Ethan Supple's character is like, I do, I was like, wait, where are the things to tell me?
How weird.
Where the things? I was like, what?
I know it because he sees it.
And I'm looking at the
he's
because he sees, and I'm looking at the like in my settings. I'm like, I don't know this is my version just doesn't have it. But because I've seen it enough, I know I know what it is. But I thought it was hilarious though, and I just didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But Mallrats is a solid film. Also, is the cover, the poster like a play off of Star
comic
Wars?
book. Oh yeah, well
okay.
it's a play.
Well,
so if you look at all the intro comic books, they're all plays on a different comic book cover.
Comic book style.
But if you're talking about the old school one, yes, because
okay, that's
Brody
what I
on
thought.
the top with Renee at his leg.
Yeah.
That's the same
Okay.
way Princess Leia with Luke.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
Very
cool.
much.
The one we have on the poster wall, I think it's the one we have.
Okay, because like I was.
Yeah,
because I was like looking at the poster and I was like, why is this poster so familiar? And I was like, I swear this is Star Wars. I swear he posed like Star Wars character. So okay. All right, thanks for that. Okay, I could breathe now. Thank you.
He talks about that too. Like when they developed the poster, they were just like thinking what would be a cool poster to put on their wall. They didn't think about the actual like marketing part of the movie poster. There's so even like the movie poster wasn't helping them. He's basically what he says in like the intro thing. So
okay.
But it is a great poster.
I need this movie.
Will, you revisited Mallrats again. What did you think this time around?
Again, it was more about reflection on everything I know now versus what I was seeing in front of me. So when in rewatching it, first of all, it's one of my Easter movies. Okay, it's because there's so few of them. It's one of my Easter movies. But this time watching it, like over the last, I would say 2 years in incorporating Kevin Smith media, you know, we've come to learn actually that he had a strong affection for like the original Bullwinkle cartoons, and you watch this movie and you see that, like, realistically speaking, it is very heavily inspired by like Bullwinkle and Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah,
it's very much like his almost a cartoon movie in a way, because every character is a hyper extended version of a character of those types. All of the activities that happen with you know them trying to bring down the stage, and
him slipping on the skate is great. That's very
although I gotta say, every time I watch this movie, I still always have to go at the point where he is flying through and like suddenly for some reason, you know, panties are flying, the undergarments. I'm always like, how did nobody spot that dude's hand throwing one? How did nobody do that? Every single time I see it. You know, but at the same time too, I also think about the road that this movie made or went through to getting made, because first of all, it had this amazing showing at San Diego Comic-Con naturally, and they thought they were going to make millions, and then the movie that when it got released, it did not. But you know, the other thing too that I love about this movie is both its rewatchability. It's my wife's it's my wife's favorite of Kevin Smith's movies. So much so we named a cockatiel Brody at one point that we had, and it's just it's the most rewatchable of his movies, and you know, in the pantheon of his career, it's also the one that, believe it or not, really put him on the map. It's what it's most people's gateway movie to Kevin's work. It was the most lifted piece of media out of rental houses of his, and you know, it's the one movie that I think if you find somebody that recognizes the name Kevin Smith, instantly they connect with Mallrats. So just rewatching it, I absolutely love and adore the movie. And just knowing, that we're never going to get probably the Mallrats 2 that was envisioned because Shannon has passed. It almost brought me to a tear to see her so gleefully wailing on the drums in the end scene.
I know.
It's just like, oh, look at her go. But it's such a just silly, enjoyable, ridiculous movie. It's one of those things where, like, especially if you're in a bad mood, it's just perfect mental chewing gum. Put everything you've got to the side and just sit there and absorb the absurdity and enjoy it just the way you have 100 times before. It's just such a cute damn film.
Love it. Yeah, exactly.
I would agree. Janine, what did you think of Mallrats this time around?
Yeah, I think on this watch I realized just how much the female characters are my favorite thing about this movie. They're all very cool. They speak their mind. I love how kind of sexually confident and independent they are. I was thinking about my first time watch of this movie. I watched it, I think, in my 20s, so I saw it very late. And I was very much a millennial that was ingratiated in the boom of teen movies. And so I think I went into this movie thinking it was a teen movie. So when it was this 20-something movie, it was this huge kind of shift that I wasn't expecting. But again, very much like Clerks, very relatable, seeing 20-somethings really just kind of struggling at where they are in life and being directionless. And so I found myself really enjoying having that relatability and feeling like, okay, it's not just me that really doesn't know what they're doing with their lives, who's still going to community college for like 8 years to figure it out. So yeah, I loved kind of seeing that mirror of, okay, it's not just me. So that movie really gave that to me. I love all the running gags. I think they're hilarious. The magic eye thing is great. The escalator, and then we ultimately hear that the kid got hurt on the escalator after all of that.
Again.
But yeah, I mean, everything everyone said, I totally agree, and just really love these female characters. I don't think I really picked up on that until this watch, that they're all just very cool and very like sexually independent and not kind of seen as, like sluts or anything like that. It just felt very,
and
women
they
are
speak
like
their
that,
mind without it being like like
them being
crazy,
overbearing
like,
or
overbearing or anything like that. Being angry at any time or speaking their mind always makes sense.
They never got these negative labels for being that, which movies can do to characters who do the things that these women do.
Oh, I love it. Like I said earlier, this is a movie I had to see in theaters, and I was, one of those people that just went to the theater way too often when I was a teenager. Maybe not too often. It is like the beautiful song and what you would expect when talking so beautifully about Mallrats. It shows how terrible they really are, but also it gives a love. It's like a love note, which I love. I think Jason Lee's performance in this is phenomenal because it keeps us going along, because TS is us, essentially. We're the person that never goes to the mall, and then we're dragged by our friend to go to the mall for the day. And he introduces us to all this cast of characters, these great characters. Because I've seen it so many times, mostly I just kind of listen. It's one of those background movies because I've seen it so many times. But every time the escalator scene comes up, I lose it. I love how right when another scene starts to break down, that's when the cops get called away because the kids get
hear it in the background.
Right?
There's a kid stuck in the escalator.
Right? I love it. And just the Brody character, he's cool, but like as adults, as you guys have all mentioned, he's not cool. He's kind of lame.
Right.
What's a 23-year-old doing hanging out with his 15-year-old at the mall? Like, what are you doing, dude? But hey, in retrospect, obviously. But I think that it's sad to me that the movie didn't make any money, because it's talked about so fondly and has been for so long that it's hard to believe that it didn't make money. And we could argue about why, because they did change the film pretty dramatically after the screening and said you got to cut this whole chunk of the beginning out, which Kevin likes to add more flavor. There was more meat to the story that they made him cut.
I mean, at least in that alternate, original opening, like for those that don't know, TS basically screws up a different project that Svenning was working on, and because of that, that's the reason why Svenning hates him so much, not because he's his daughter's loser boyfriend. So that led to a lot of overdubs or ADR work that had to be required. And it is interesting too when you look at the fact that they had to basically, for lack of a better term, whitewash Jay and Silent Bob's occupation, if you will, for this movie. I mean, if you guys aren't even aware, Jay Muse almost didn't play Jay in this movie. He had to prove himself. The production didn't fly him out. He had to stay in their hotel rooms.
Yep, Kevin had to pay for it.
They had to, and if the first few days of dailies had not gone well, it would have been Breckenmeyer.
Or Seth Green was the other one. Yeah, two people lined up. Yeah, they were like ready, like keep your phone on. We're gonna have you on a flight out there if this doesn't go well.
Which is doesn't Brecken pop up in like Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back or something like that? Like which one of them pops up with?
I think it might be Brecken.
Is it Brecken that pops up in there with James Vanderbeek? Like they're supposed to play.
No.
Like,
That's
I'm sorry. But also you do bring up one point though that it's just like sort of the kind of the element that carries forward from Clerks that's present in this one is probably one of the most problematic things in the film, which is the entire character of Trish the Dish. It's just like, I'm sorry. She's how old and she's doing what?
Sure.
She's doing what?
Exactly.
And with everyone's consent? What is going on here?
Like 14 to 30, I think it was like that she was doing. Like 14 to 30, and she's like 15.
Yeah.
So on the back end of her, like that's bad. And then on the front end, that's still bad for her, but it's also extremely bad for like these guys. Like so, like, and I think it's funny that they were worried about Jay Muse, but that part where they were okay with.
Right.
Wait. Now, in retrospect, the 90s, like every movie had this kind of crap in it. Not necessarily every drama or anything, but the comedy and the like. This was the culture.
Understood. Right. But it still doesn't make sense that like you would allow that, but you have a problem with Jay Muse.
Well,
like that doesn't.
He was an unknown.
But those two things just don't equate to me. Those things just don't equate to me. That's all. That's the only reason I'm saying it.
I mean, and I will say too, like another thing I noticed about these films is like certain language that was used back then we would never use today. Obviously, you know, it's like another, which is just a 90s kind of thing.
No, for sure. Because like when at the end when she's like, well, I can't help it. I love the, our word. I won't say it. I won't say it on the pod. But like we're not nobody's saying that anymore or anything like that. But I will say, watching this go around, I did enjoy. I saw like everybody from the Secret Stash in this film. Totally. Secret Stash. And I was like, yo, and then like I finally got the Walt Flanagan's dog joke. I was like, they threw Walt Flanagan in there. I was like, this is like so great. And then I think Brian O'Halloran plays like two different characters in this.
So he actually, he plays Gil Hicks in this movie, which is actually Dante Hicks's cousin.
Well, three of them. Right. He played three, I think, or something like that.
And then with the Ethan Suplee character, that's actually the same character that Mosier plays in Clerks. That's the William character with the beard. So he's actually the same character.
Funny.
And then one of the other ones was Randall and Brody potentially are related because they both talk about their cousin Walter, who does all this crazy shit, and it's confirmed that's the same Walter. So Randall and Brody are cousins,
which had to have the cat removed. Like
and that makes a lot of sense because they both are like very loud, very honest people.
They feel like they come from the same family line.
Same family. They both slackers, and so it makes sense.
Yeah. One of the other fun little kind of snippets, if you will, because that's becoming the word, is the names of the two main characters, Brody, Bruce, T.S. Quint. And so it's the three names from Jaws, the three main characters. And then, of course, it's a Universal film, and they get the rights to use that for just a quick second.
And the Jaws
which I love. But he's got a ton of movie references.
And at the end, the Jaws, there you go. There you go, Janine. We're the same brain, like the Jaws wedding. Yeah, that's good.
The shark in the salsa and Clerks.
Apparently, LaFleur is the name of the character from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and he even wears the same kind of hat. So he's like he's showing his movie chops in his movies, and all the stoners are like, "Oh, this is funny," and he's like, "No, movie reference."
Yeah, these are.
But also, can we talk about how him and Trish the Dish are they together then? Because he kisses her on the top of the head. Like, it's
Well, that's like, I think that's a Mallrat etiquette thing. Like, she's the Mallrats.
Oh, you're precious.
I'm being serious. Like, I was a serious Mallrat, and there was like always a group mentality.
This grown man holding her books is protecting.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I don't think Kevin had that in mind. That's just my opinion.
Right.
That's just me.
But I will say LaFleurs is fine though. That's a good looking man. I was like, that's a good looking man. Beautiful eyes.
Another no speaking role for somebody in a Kevin movie.
You only had to speak.
Mosher was in this one too. He was the guy behind he was the stage director.
Right. Yeah. He played Rooker's
his little
second in command.
Yeah.
Can I say that I would love Michael Rooker to do more comedy? I think he's like hilarious.
Yeah, he definitely commits.
Yeah, I think his like physical comedy is great. I think like him in the beginning in the towel and like doing karate chops and then it just falls. I was just like, why did
that says like
this man's hilarious.
The thing too, like when you introduce a character, it's very like it's important to try to like make an impact every time you introduce.
Yes, a memorable
you get
moment
this
for
whole
them.
just in a few seconds, you get this whole sense of who this guy is already. Like,
immediately. You're like, he's a dick. Immediately. You can tell.
You're like,
she's like, he's upset in there. He's just like, I'm just like, okay.
By the way, shout out to physical media. If you, well, obviously everyone in this room, I'm preaching to the choir here, but either if you get any of the versions of the Mallrats on physical media that has the quote unquote director's commentary, one of the best things about like the OG one is that it has everybody in the room and
sweet.
Affleck is there, and at that scene you mentioned that was one of the moments before J Muse falls asleep on the floor and is snoring, and he literally just starts out, look at that ass, look at that ass. it's definitely something to enjoy.
I missed that audio commentaries.
Another thing too, for Mallrats, one of the last podcasts that Shannon Doherty did on her podcast before she passed, Kevin was on, and it was actually a revelation to me, even this long in the game, that she's the reason why that movie got greenlit. Once they got her on, she had that 90210 energy and got the movie made. And popping back to Clerks real quick too, I just want to point out, since I'm horrible at plugging my own stuff, I'm able to plug something that's really interesting that did happen. If you go to youtube.com/Kevin Smith, he recently just posted basically a short movie he made saying called We Never Smiled in the 90s, and it is a compilation of basically found footage from the secret stash in the basement. That's basically like a compilation of the footage right before the footage we've seen in the movies and other bits from the original Clerks, and it's just been restored straight from aged film. So there's lots of dirt and squiggles and burn-ins on the film, but it's a nice look back at these characters that now have become so much a part of our lives, and the actors that played them. It's like a silent movie basically, but even I watched it, and because I'm the guy that posted it, I'm the guy that got it to the film festival, etc., just as an intermediary. I didn't do any editing on it, but like when it came up, Kevin said, don't share this with anybody, but we need this over here. And I'm like, great, fine, but I can watch it, right? And he's like, yeah. And then he instantly asked, what did I think? And I'm like, it looked like watching a friend's home movie, but one that I really loved instead of just some random thing. So if you haven't seen that, I would encourage everyone to give it a glance. And also the version that's on YouTube, interestingly enough, the intro that's about 5 times as long as the actual short film itself, Kevin decided to put on the end. So after you watch the thing, you then hear Kevin wax poetically about it. So interesting choice. Cool. And so when you see the lower third that says Kevin decided to put this at the end, it's so weird. I put that in there. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but
toot.
We appreciate the tooting. I did not mean that. I did not mean that way. Yeah. Daughters, we talk about tooting. we need to rate this film. But is there anything else you guys wanted to mention before we do so?
I love seeing Stan Lee in this film.
Oh yeah.
Just a younger but old. Because to me, Stan Lee is the Morgan Freeman of some stuff. Because it's just like I've never seen him young. He's just always been an older man. To me.
Right? He didn't used to have a beard, right? He used to be
And like SMODCO said, this was his first cameo film done. And, you know, you can also hunt this out. But, you know, Kevin always tells the story that Stan would always joke about, like, you know, if you look at all the appearances he's done, you know, he's in all these blockbusters, but then there's Mallrats that just pulls it down.
But I love it because when you go to Captain Marvel, you see him.
I mean, that's literally the only thing I like about Captain Marvel.
I love it.
That puts the View Askewniverse inside the Marvel universe.
Yes, it does.
We will take
it exists. Yeah.
Right. So yeah,
oddly obsessed with your superhero genitalia.
Right.
Is it orange? Is it made of rocks?
But honestly, I think that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite things about this film is that like they ask the real questions. Those are questions that like every comic book nerd has like asked or wondered or thought. Like it's so funny, and I love that Stan Lee's like, I think you need to get us some help. He's really worried about superhero genitalia. It's so funny. I was just like, he's great.
I can't imagine those guys back in those writing rooms weren't at least discussing it, even though they couldn't write it down. They were at least bringing it up. So that's my opinion. All right. Well, let's go ahead and rate Mallrats. And of course, if you haven't seen the director's cut, please do check it out, at least so you can see the difference between the two. And you can see how the studio really intervened on this film, but pretty much left him alone. Well, he went back to Miramax after this. So he was like, let's go back to the people that will let me make the movies I want to make.
Yeah. We'll talk about that one next week.
Yes.
Right. Let's start with you, Brian. What do you rate Mallrats?
As a 9.5 for me.
9.5. Yeah. How about you, Law?
It's one of my favorites. It's a solid 10 for me. Solid 10.
Sweet.
I love Mallrats.
How about you, Will?
I'm going to give it an 11 out of 10 because it's definitely one loud.
He's spinal tapping it. All right. I love it. And then Jeanine.
Also a 9.5.
Hey,
so you know you copy now.
Janine, if I was you, I'd just be like 9.4. 9.6 or
9.5.
9.6.
Wait,
9.6.
I vote one. I bid 1 penny. Wait, no.
Yes.
Wrong show.
9.5.1. No.
You can start doing that with the prices of Criterion movies. No, okay. I will give it a 10. I don't think you're going to hear much else out of me for the rest of the month. I'll just give you my ratings up front.
Oh yeah, wait till we get to Tusk, buddy. Come on.
I still give it a 10. I just won't.
There are certain unique aspects. Yes, I would agree, but
right.
All right. Well, I did not get a chance to really show off my my Silent Bob, so I'm going to take that chance now. This is, of course, from the Clerks animated series. So.
Oh no, it's not, my friend. That is actually that is the Graffiti Designs Silent Bob in action figure that was originally released in the late 90s, and I know because I have one as well.
Nice.
Oh, it's even cooler than I thought. Then that's awesome.
It is just the originally conceptualized novelty that they're like, hey, let's make these, and there's also a counterpart, Jay, that you could also get for the hands interchange. Like I love the Silent Bob one because you interchange regular hand with a cigarette hand,
right?
And I can't remember the packaging, but it emphasized something about his silence. I can't remember what it was. Oh well. Anyway, sorry.
We'll bring it up next time. No, I'll look it up.
No, wait a second. Let me tell you what that thing is.
Will. I'm just waiting for bated breath now. Oh my gosh, I wanted to know what it said.
And speaking of Mallrats, oh God, what was the? I remember I bought mine. It was one of the last ones that was available at a Suncoast motion picture.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
Actually, that's the other thing about Mallrats. I met my wife in the mall.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was working at the tuck shop, and she worked at the photo development place across the way.
Not to copy you, Will, but I also met my wife at the mall. We were both. I worked at Foot Locker. She worked at Lady Foot Locker, and we.
I met my ex-wife at the mall. So
let's bring it down.
This is where we live lives from the
room, bro. Come on.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I met
all right.
nobody at the mall.
I met nobody at the mall.
Come on, Janine. Me and
Oh.
Janine.
No,
out
yeah.
here.
I went to the mall to see a cute boy that I liked. But
Yeah, I
that's
went to the
about
mall
it. Yeah.
to scoop ice cream for people because I used to work at the mall. So
There you go.
Wait, did we all work at a mall at some point? Will, did you work at a mall?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
met her at the
Yeah,
mall.
we met-
I
working
wasn't sure if
at
you
the
worked.
tuck
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
So we've all worked at a mall. Have we all been clerks? That's the next question.
yes.
I was a clerk.
Well, I
I was
have.
even
Yeah,
at
yeah.
I've been a
7-Eleven
clerk.
even,
Yeah, I've
so,
been a clerk. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I worked at a
Yeah.
gas station for like 2
even
days.
though technically it was a movie theater, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
same.
ringing up on a register, I
Yeah.
count that as a clerk. You're just
Yes.
a concession clerk, right?
In the box office.
correct.
So,
I did.
box office clerk, yeah. Clerk's a clerk. That said, we will be continuing with our Kevin Smith month next week with, of course, Chasing Amy and Dogma. Good luck finding a copy of Dogma. It's going to be tricky, but Kevin said there's
Next
one
year.
floating out for you guys to watch out there somewhere. So don't skip
Apparently,
deliberate.
yeah.
I think it's on
rumor
YouTube.
has it there's a tube of you, yeah, that you might be able to find it.
Yes. Yes. I just
Yeah.
recommended it to somebody who's very young today to watch. And I
Nice.
sent them the link, the YouTube link. So
Nice.
So this week was Starting Smith. Next week is Profound Smith, and then we move into Silly Smith, and we'll go from there, and then Horror Smith for the
Then it
final
takes a
week.
turn. Yeah.
Right, and then it takes a turn from silly to horror. But that makes sense. I think that turn makes sense.
Right.
That said, this has of course been episode 7 of season 4 of The Real Study. We do appreciate you guys coming by and seeing us. You'll see all of us next week. See
You
next
will. Don't
time.
forget to follow us on everything.
Thanks, Will, for
Netheads.
being here.
Appreciate
We
you,
always like
Will.
seeing you.
Bunch of savages in this
We
town.
do.
Yes.